Hello, KazGem here, and today we are back in VanillaVille Season 2, Episode 2, and we are going to be expanding our great city and trying our best to get a little bit more growth and figure out what comes next in the stages of city planning. So, the first thing we're going to do is take a quick little look-see at this. So we're dealing with a little bit of a problem, and you can tell what it is if you take a quick look. And this is something that happens a lot. You've got, okay, everyone wants sewage, but we hooked up our sewage, right? Well, we did, but there's a problem with it. Our sewage is not receiving power anymore. And it's not receiving power because there's just a shortage of water across the city. So, this is something that you need to solve relatively quick. So, and this is why I placed 3 of these windmills. And this is a great little trick, because this way, I can just turn on another windmill. Give it a minute. And it should kick on. And as soon as the power issues are gone, the sewage issues will also go away. Let's go ahead and turn this guy on as well. There we go. So now I've got 3 of these guys rolling. And that'll give us plenty of power for a good amount of time into the future. Alrighty. And these guys are chugging, chugging, chugging. Now let's go ahead and just pull some pipes out. Just to make sure that we're covered on water. And then over here, we're going to go ahead and do something very similar. Now, we're going to start doing a major expansion. I'm going to show you guys a trick that I use to get some good expansion early on without causing myself too much heartache. So, what I'm going to do after laying out that pipe is I'm actually going to remove these streets. And then I'm going to remove these guys as well. So now let's go ahead and connect this up. This is just showing you guys a different strategy is what I'm going for. Let's go ahead and put this right here. And then this guy is going to connect all the way up. So what I'm doing right here is I'm creating an elongated grid. And a grid system is effectively a set like this, where you have a bunch of roads that interconnect, and it creates squares and rectangles, and it's very neat and clean, not too many curves, things like that. But an elongated grid is where you focus more on elongated rectangles than squares. So it's just a fun little alternative for people. Now, I've laid those out, but our city is running into one of the first issues. You've got to put down some garbage. Now, there are a couple of options. If you have just base game, you have landfill. If you have green cities, you'll also have the recycling center. So, it's honestly up to you which one you want to use. If you have the cash at hand, I would really recommend the recycling center. However, if you're short on cash, the landfill site will be just fine. And we're going to go with the landfill site because we're really not a wealthy city yet. So we're just going to toss all of our trash there for now and not worry about it too much. Now, at this stage of the game, this is where a lot of people make a mistake. They're like, okay, we need health and education. Let's go. No, you don't. You need to go ahead and just place down a medical clinic first, because their health is more important to your Sims than their education, and it'll keep them alive longer, things like that. So let's go ahead and plop down a little clinic, just right there. And what that clinic is going to do is it's going to send out ambulances, mainly to your residential area, occasionally somewhere else, but mainly to your residents to take care of anyone that's sick. And it's going to pull people into the clinic, and they're going to get healed up, and it'll be perfect and beautiful. And now what I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and grab these streets. I'm going to pull them just a little bit more forward, just for funsies. There we go. And now we're going to go ahead and zone this area up to get some residential in. And again, so we've got these elongated grids. I'm going to go ahead and use the Marquee Select. And if you're curious, the Marquee Select is probably the single most used zoning tool I use. The other zoning tools are perfectly fine, but that's the one I am most comfortable with. It's the one that I find myself reaching for the most. So that's just a little by the by, but I do think it's interesting to note. So we'll go ahead and zone that up as well. Now what I've just done is I've zoned up 2 areas. And you'll see later on, what I'm going to start doing is I'm going to start doing no more than that amount of zoning at the same time. Why is that? Well, I want to present what's called a death wave. Death waves are actually kind of nasty, and you really don't want them. And what they are if you zone too much at once, if you get too many residents coming in at the same time, you will end up with a lot of people that move in at the same time, at the same age, and then they will inevitably die around the same time, which is a little grim and morbid, but it is the fact of life. They will all start dying around the same time. And then you will end up overwhelming your death care system. We'll deal with death care a little further down the road. But for now, just know that you'll have to place cemeteries and crematoriums to deal with that. Now, I've just placed down a big strip of commercial, so hopefully that's going to do well. And I'm going to go ahead and use this opportunity to start planning a little bit. So, what do I mean by planning a little bit? So, starting to plan out my road network. So, you'll note, I have this road that's coming off of what is going to be a highway, and I've got only a couple roads coming off of it. That's because this is what we're going to call an arterial road. And this arterial road should have as few connections as possible, particularly in regards to small streets. And now, with next to no effort, we've already reached Worthy Village. Wow, no time whatsoever. And we'll go ahead and show you what you need to do once you reach this point. Now, at Worthy Village, you unlock a couple things. You unlock police and fire. You unlock the ability to do your first industry area. And you unlock your first level of unique buildings. Now, do not touch the unique buildings at first, because they're too expensive and you just can't afford them yet. But the absolute first thing you're going to do as soon as you hit this stage is you're going to take a small fire station. You're going to place it near your industry, hopefully right off of a main road. Not on a main road, but right off of a main road. Why is that? So, the fire station is obviously going to help you prevent fires and put out fires. And what they're going to do is they're going to race out to this industry area if anything catches on fire and put it out. But they will also be able to come over here, so you don't need to at this stage put one over here and one over here. That's just a waste of money and resources. But if you just place it next to industry, they'll be next to 95% of the fires that you get. Then the remaining 5% that are elsewhere in your city, they still have access to go do. Now, again, this is a personal preference, but I do strongly recommend you take that guidance. Now, the next stage. We've got a little bit of extra money, so we're going to make another decision. Policing or education? And I'm actually going to choose education. Why is that? Policing is important. Well, policing is kind of a quick fix, whereas education needs to happen as early as possible in order for your city to really benefit from it. So, back to our arterial roads. We're going to have this first arterial road come in here. We're going to pull it over here. And while that's happening, I'm going to talk a little bit about why I plopped an educational building right here. So, the education buildings need to be placed in residential areas, obviously. And you need to make sure that these educational buildings have good access to transport as well as all of the immediate residents. You want to have access to the immediate residents just so that they can all walk to school, but you also want to have access to transport so that if you have some far-flung students, they are still able to make it to school no problem. Because if your Sims cannot easily get to school, they will not get educated. As well as if your schools are overwhelmed, your Sims will not get educated. So you've got to keep that in mind whenever you're laying out your schools. So, let's go ahead and grab this guy. Let's go ahead and pull this around. And we're going to go ahead and pull this area as another zoning. There we are. And again, that's about the maximum I would recommend zoning at once. You'll note that I did basically 2 of these, which is about the length of that. And then I did this length, which is about the same as this. So, again, just giving you different perspectives on the amount of zoning you should be doing at the same time at a maximum. Now, let's go ahead and start thinking a little bit more about how this area is going to not just be laid out, but also how it's going to look. And this is where you need to start thinking a little bit about your arterial roads a bit more. So, this is going to be a large intersection. I would like to try and focus on these two as huge arterial roads for around here. Then everything else is just going to spool off of them. So, in an effort to meet that, let's go ahead and just have one intersection right there, but nothing major. But when they're on this main road, you don't want them stopping too much. So what you're going to do is you're going to open up your info panel, and you're going to use the traffic routes tool. And then on the second tab of it, up here on the top left, because you see routes, then junctions, and then adjust roads. You're going to select junctions. And then you're going to go ahead and come over here, deselect that, make sure you're back in here, and you're going to toggle the traffic lights off on the main road. Why is that? Well, we're going to try and make it to where if you're on this road, you aren't stopping. This is going to be a non-stop. This is just where you keep on driving through with no problem whatsoever. And then obviously we'll do the same right here. But this guy, since this is going to be a major intersection, we do want that to have a stoplight on it, at least for now. We may come up with a more clever solution in the future, but for now, that's what we want. Now, if this were to get too bad, what kind of solutions are there? Well, you can always go ahead and turn on some stop signs. If you see yourself with this road being blocked too much with this oncoming traffic, just some stop signs will do perfectly fine. And you'll see that already what's happening is these guys are approaching and stopping before they turn onto the main road, which is what you want. So I'm going to go ahead and do that over here too, just so we can see how it pans out. And then you'll also notice that all of these little streets have no stop signs and no stop lights. You don't need to give them stop signs, but if you do have a priority road, say this road, since it goes all the way back, you can go ahead and say, you guys stop, so that these guys come through. Alright, so now let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about two things. One, our power situation, and two, our police budget. So I'm at a bit of a crossroads. I need to place down a police station because I've got a couple people with some crime going on, and that's not good. But we also have some sewage issues and power issues, and the sewage issues are exclusively due to the power issues. Now, what I'm going to show you is a way that I can achieve both of these goals really, really quick. So, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and adjust our budget. So, what we're going to do is we're going to uptick our taxes. Now, if you're just beginning, I don't recommend going past 10 or 11%. You can go a little higher, such as 12 or maybe even 13 if you provide good services, but when you're just starting, no more than 11 on the taxes. And you do have to adjust that for each level of zoning. Now, over on budget, let's also boost the power budget a little bit. Let's boost it to 150%. What this is going to do is it is going to, that's the water budget, we are going to be seeing almost 150% of the budget spent, and we'll see not quite 150% of the power output. Why is that? Well, because it's diminishing returns, and you'll note right here, it was 8, but now at 150% it's only 10, so that's not quite working, is it? Because now we've barely got enough power to go around. So we need to find a different solution. So let's open our budget panels again. Let's go ahead and bring that back down, because that's just not going to work out for us. Now, the first solution would be to plop down some extra green power. The other one would be to plop down a different power source. But either way, we need money for that, if we're going to do that and the police station at the same time. But we're going to prioritize doing this. So we're going to go ahead and grab just a couple more of these wind turbines. And we're just going to plop them on in right here. There we go. That looks pretty good. And now, you should see these power issues stay away. And it's actually not costing us much more per week, which is super duper ideal. And now, we are at a situation where I really do want that police station as well. So is there a solution for this? Yes, there is. If you go to economy and then you go to the loans tab, you'll note that you have 3 loans you can take. Now, you need to be careful with this. And you need to, before you start taking it, take a look at your budget down here. Now, if you see that your bank balance is consistently going up, you're significantly in the green, then feel free to take a loan. But if you are significantly in the red, then you need to make other adjustments to your economy before you take out this loan. And also, make sure you take a look at a couple things. 1, your total amount taken out. 2, your total amount of paid back, so your interest and whatnot. So like right here, you know it's 5% interest on this base amount of 20. You know it's 10% on this base amount of 60. And you pay this back over 52 weeks, so a year in game. And then you pay this back over 5 years in game. And also, the other thing you want to note is the weekly cost. So this small loan is actually more expensive in the weekly costs than this guy. But I know with our economy and with the little that we need, we're going to go ahead and just take the small loan, the 20,000. Let's go ahead and take that out. And you'll note, before I unpause, you can pay back your loans at any time. And we'll deal with that later whenever we run to that kind of situation where it's a good idea for us to take a loan and then pay it off. But for now, let's go ahead and unpause and find the perfect place to place our police station. And you know what? Right at this street corner really looks great. And same strategy as before. You want to make sure that it is right off of a main road and on the side of traffic that I can pull right into there with no problem whatsoever. And that'll make sure that your police station isn't generating too much traffic for this area. Not only that, but it'll also have easy access to the main road. And now, Tiny Town already. We are just blasting through these today. So, at Tiny Town, you get a couple of important things. You get industry areas, park areas, and you also can start things such as fishing industry, level 2 unique buildings, football, and concerts. So this is where you can really start adding some flavor and flair to your city. So, let's go ahead and see what we've got here. Let's go ahead and pause again, and let's just think. And I do recommend taking a quick pause whenever you are getting into a new stage of your city and you want to do a little bit of planning. And looking at top-down, looking at side-to-side, do all that kind of stuff, just so you can figure out what you want things to look like. Now, one of the first most important things would be to introduce a high school. However, that's not your only option. You can also start getting into industries such as fishing, farming, and lumber. So again, there are lots of options at this point, and in this case, I'm going to prioritize education because I believe that's the best for a long-term growth of a city. So we're going to take this high school, we're going to plop it right on this street over here. There we go. And now let's go ahead and unpause, and you'll see that everyone now has good coverage by the high school, but they're all red. What does this mean? So, this green area of road is kind of the best area of effect, or immediate area of effect, of the high school. And then, on top of that, you've got all these houses that are red. What does that mean? Because if you go over to the elementary, you'll note some of them are changing colors. So, what the red means is we have no education of this level here. We have no coverage, we are stupid, all that kind of stuff. And then as it transitions to green over time, like these guys are starting to turn more green. That means that they've got more educated people, they've got a better education, etc. And so the goal is to make sure that people have access to an elementary, high school, and if needed, a university. But we'll get to there later. We're not quite to that stage yet. But in order to help sponsor some of these new projects, we are going to take out a second loan. And I know I can handle this because that is 253 weekly costs for a budget that can handle it. We can certainly handle it. Now, before I add any of this new stuff, I want to go ahead and expand slightly. So, we're going to add another street over here. Add the cross street right here. I'm going to go ahead and continue that cross street, just like so. And then we're going to go ahead and have another one, just like this. And now, let's go ahead and zone this out. Let's go ahead and grab our zoning tool. We're just going to do one street at a time, again, to avoid death waves, and just to make sure that's gradual growth going over to the side. And we're already covered on water as well. Cool. So, let's go ahead and get also a little bit of industry, because your industry demand is growing, and your industries are really the engine of your city. They really are the engines of your economy. You want to make sure that you are covered on that. So let's go ahead and grab this guy. And we can't quite do my industrial roads yet, and I'll show you guys more about those later. But for now, just go ahead and I'm going to grab a couple more of these and just pull straight down. Nothing too major. And after I zone this area as industrial, I am going to... You can mass zone industrial. It's actually not bad to do that. I'm going to grab our traffic routes tool, and I'm going to turn this off on all of these stoplights. So let's go ahead and let's turn that off. Go back into junctions. Make sure you don't have a tool selected whenever you do this, otherwise it'll kind of get wonky like you just saw. So let's go ahead and pull straight across. And this will just make this whole area flow a lot better. And again, if it gets bad, you can always come straight over here and start saying, hey, you have to stop. And that is always an option. So, Right here, for instance. These guys will also stop because I want to make sure that traffic is free-flowing on these primary roads. Then right here, this is kind of a major four-way, so everyone stops type thing. Now, you can do that, but I don't recommend it. Logically, that is what would happen, but in this game, you really don't need that. Alright, so a couple more things that we need to do at this stage of the city, just to kind of ensure that things are growing correctly. Now, first of all, we can start placing our first couple parks, and we'll build a legitimate park next time, but what I want to do today is show how much happier people are if you just give them something simple, like, say, this small playground. Everyone is red, which means that they aren't covered by parks and uniques and all that, but check that out. One little park, and they're really happy. Nice. So what happens if I give them a dog walking park, too, that has some overlap? Because you don't have to make sure these don't overlap. You can and should have overlap. So if I place this, you will note that the people that are covered by both things are extremely happy. And then the people that are covered by just one of the things are kind of happy, and the people that aren't covered at all are just like, why don't we have things? So, you want to make sure that your citizens are happy at this stage. So let's go ahead, and we've got a little bit of money. We purposely took out a loan so we could do this kind of stuff. So we've got that kind of stuff, and then we'll go ahead and plop you in. It's a little too big for what I was wanting to do, but this guy is perfect. So we're going to go ahead and plop you in just right here. Look at that. It's beautiful. And these folks will come on over here. They'll really appreciate the parks. They'll appreciate the beautification that you're doing to your city. Now, the next stage of the city is where we really start making decisions. And we'll have to decide what industry we're diving into and what the future of the city is next time, because it is the end of VanillaVille, episode 2 of season 2. If you've enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and also be sure to leave a comment. What kind of videos would you like to see in the future? Are you liking VanillaVille? What do you like specifically about it? And be sure to catch me live at twitch.tv/Kazjim, where I stream Monday through Friday for 7 to 10 hours each. Go over there now. I just might be live. And until next time, this is Kazjim signing out. See ya!